Hello everyone, welcome again. In the section on integral numbers, we covered how to handle conversions from incompatible data types to integral numbers using the parse method or the convert class. The same approach applies to floating point numbers as well. Now, let's take a closer look at how the parse method and convert class work to convert values between different data types. So, first, let's talk about the parse method. In general, the first step that this method takes is to verify whether the input value is null or not. Okay, but what is a null value? In C#, null is a keyword that represents the absence of a value, which is used to initialize reference type variables. For example, here, we've declared a string variable and initialized it with a null keyword, which represents the absence of a value. We'll cover the concept of null values in detail during the intermediate course. Now, let's return to discussing the parse method. Alright, so if the input is null, the method will throw an exception with an error message indicating that null inputs are not allowed, and the application will be terminated. After confirming that the input is not null, the method goes through each character of the input to construct a valid floating point number. Ultimately, if the input string is successfully parsed into a floating point number, that value will be returned from the method. However, if the parsing fails for any reason, an exception will be thrown indicating that the input was not in a valid format. This approach applies to all C# numeric types, including both integral and floating point numbers. Great! Now, let's delve into the convert class and its methods. As you may already be aware, this class provides a set of methods for converting data types to one another, including the likes of 2 single, 2 double, and 2 decimal, which are useful for converting all data types to floating point numbers. Now, let's illustrate how the 2 double method works. Similar to the parse method, this method also begins by verifying whether the input value is null or not. If the input value is null, the method will return a value of 0. After verifying that the input value is not null, if the input value is already a double type, the method simply returns the input value as is. Next, if the input value is a string, this method uses the parse method to convert the string into a double type value. As previously mentioned, if the parse method is able to successfully convert the input string into a valid double type value, that value will be returned from this method. However, as you may know, if any errors occur during the parsing process, a corresponding exception will be thrown. But if the input value is not a string, this method performs conversion based on the data type of the input value. For instance, if the input value is of type long, an explicit cast will be performed to convert the input value to double, and then the resulting double value will be returned. Alright, now let's switch to VS Code and explore some examples together. To start with, let's declare a string variable and initialize it with a null literal value. Next, let's convert the input value to a double type using the parse method. After saving the file, let's test it out. As expected, we encountered an exception. As you can see from the error message, it says that the input value cannot be null. So, let's change the input value to a string representation of a number such as 3.14. Save everything up and give it a test run to see if everything is working as expected. As you can see, the parse method successfully converts the input string value to a double type. Now, let's repeat the process for float and decimal types to see how the parse method works with those numeric data types. Save the file and let's give it a try. As you can see, all the conversion operations have been performed successfully. Okay, let's see what happens when we provide an invalid value as the input. Let's test it out. As expected, an exception is thrown and indicating that the provided input is invalid. Now, let's provide you with some examples of how to use the convert class. First, let's replace the parse methods with the corresponding methods of the convert class. Let's give it a try to see how they behave. As expected, this input is invalid and cannot be converted to floating point number. Now, let's test the methods by passing a null value as the input and observing the result. Lastly, let's test these methods using a valid input value. As expected, these methods successfully convert the input value to the corresponding floating point types. Okay, thanks for watching this lecture. See you in the next one.